Hello, we're back again to the exciting conclusion of Chapter 18. We're on page 178. Daddy has just declared that they need to get the Louisiana ladies safe. And Louisiana ladies, remember, are Mr. Thompson's brand new type of flower that he's worked so hard on. He's actually right now out looking to see a guy to sell them and to make some money for their farm. And let's see how people react to this. The question I have is Mrs. Thompson going to trust Daddy with this? How are Shorty and Milton going to react to this? Is Tiger going to help her daddy out? You know, this has to be a team effort. There are so many of those flowers out there. So let's get on and read the exciting conclusion of My Louisiana Sky, Chapter 18. Here we go. Shorty looked like he was holding his breath, and I saw a vein pop out of his temple. He looked so mad, I was afraid he was going to hit Daddy with that hoe. Mrs. Thompson stared at the sky. It was dark gray, and the clouds had a swept look, but there was no wind and not a drop of rain. "Okay," Mrs. Thompson said. "Tell us what we have to do." Shorty took another step closer to Mrs. Thompson. "Don't tell me you're going to listen to him." Black tobacco spit sprayed from his mouth with his words. Mrs. Thompson stepped back. "Well, of course I am, and you will too if you know what's best for you." Shorty thumped his finger on his forehead. "But he's simple. What would Mr. Thompson say if he knew you were listening to an idiot?" Mrs. Thompson's face pinched up, and she stepped closer to Shorty until her face was inches from his. "Mr. Thompson isn't here, and when he isn't here, I'm in charge. And I said we listen to Lonnie." Her voice shook a bit, but I could tell what she meant what she said. Mr. Thompson sometimes joked about Mrs. Thompson's Cajun temper, but now I wondered if he'd been serious. "Well, I'll be darned if I'm going to take orders from an idiot or a woman. Next thing I know, you'll be asking one of these young'uns how to run things." Then you better leave now, Mr. Calhoun." Shorty threw down the hoe and straightened his hat. "Don't mind if I do. Come on, Milton." But Milton didn't move. He just stood there looking at the ground. "Well, if you feel that way, Milton, if you feel the same way, Milton," Mrs. Thompson said, "you're welcome to leave home too." Shorty clenched his teeth. "Oh, come on, Milton." Milton picked up the hoe. "I'm sorry, Shorty, but I got a family to feed." Shorty stared at him for a long moment, till his crippled legs shook, but he didn't move. Shorty reeled around and stomped off, leaving ruts in the mud where his small boots had stepped. "And don't bother to come back," Miss Thompson hollered. Shorty kept marching away, but he yelled, "We'll see what Mr. Thompson says about this." Mrs. Thompson shook her head. She looked at Daddy. "So what do we do first?" "Miss Thompson, if you don't mind your house, you're getting a little dirty. I think that would be the best place for these plants. I figure we can put sheets and newspapers down so we don't mess up your floors. If that wind gets to blowing, those cuttings will take off faster than the dickens. They'll need to be put into buckets. Then I reckon we should take those liners into the house, and if there's time, dig up the plants from the field. They might be all right in the ground, but there's no telling." "Well, let's get busy," said Mrs. Thompson. I'll lay the newspapers down on the kitchen floor." Jesse Wade and I followed Daddy to the shed, grabbed a bunch of buckets, and headed out to the cutting pile. Otis and Milton started carrying the bigger plants into the house. Gentle, Daddy said, when he saw me quickly plucking the cuttings from the sand. You don't want to hurt those roots. See?" He pulled up a cutting like he had the day before, showing me the tiny roots branching out from the bottom of the stem. "They're just like babies." I slowed my pace, tenderly transplanting the cuttings into the gallon cans. "That's it," he said. "That's mighty fine." A few moments later, he left Jesse Wade and me to do our task and help the other man in the carry the larger plants in. After we filled up every bucket, we carried them into the house. Jesse Wade's kitchen and living room turned into the hothouses with buckets of camellias everywhere. Milton didn't say a word as he limped along, following Daddy's orders, but he didn't have to. His face said it all. It said he was following a fool's orders. Then we heard it. The wind. It was like a low whisper blowing against the windows, causing the tall pine tips to sway the branches and to dance up and down. Milton's head jerked toward the window, and I swear his pale skin went whiter. I wondered what old Shorty thought of Daddy right now, but my pride was quickly replaced by fear. "Miss Thompson," Daddy said, "if it's okay with you, I think I'd better let Tiger get on home with her to be with her mama." "Of course," she said. "Lonnie, you're free to go too." "No, ma'am. Mr. Thompson said for me to keep an eye on things, and that's what I aim to do. There's plenty of work to be done here." He turned to me. "Tiger, don't go the shortcut through them woods. Use the paved road, and hurry." Jesse Wade looked at me kind of worried. "You want me to go with you?" Mrs. Thompson answered for me. "Jesse Wade, I need you to clear out some space in the bedrooms for more plants." I knew Mrs. Thompson was really worried about Jesse Wade getting out in the storm. I thought of Mama and what Magnolia had said about the family needing each other. "Here, Tiger." Mrs. Thompson opened the kitchen drawer and pulled out a yellow scarf. "Tie this scarf around your head and please be careful." I took off down the road like I was racing the wind. The last thing I expected was to see Miss Astor's calf, Pansy, stuck in the mud on the side of the road, bellowing out for her mama. Lightning blazed on the horizon. Mrs. Thompson's scarf whipped off my head like someone snatched it off, but I caught it before it blew down the road. I pushed Pansy's hind end, but I only managed to dig her front legs deeper into the mud. She kept bellowing, sounding more like a lamb than a cow. I stepped into the mud, wrapped my arms around her middle, and yanked hard. 3 more tugs and she was out. She trotted away from me, heading in the wrong direction. Why wasn't Abby Lynn out there worried about Pansy instead of me? But I couldn't leave her. Instead of running home, I picked up a stick, tapped Pansy on the behind, chasing her toward the Anders place. I felt like we were in a Fred Astaire dancing class, and Pansy and I were the worst students. She'd head off to the right, and I'd run up to her and steer her right back to the right. Finally, we reached the fallen part of the fence where Pansy had escaped. I could see Miss Astor near the Anders home, standing way up from the group of huddled cows in the field. She was calling out to her baby, and Pansy was bellowing back. Still, I practically had to slap Pansy's hind end all the way up to her mama. Just as Pansy took off to Miss Astor, I looked up and saw a blur of golden curls by a window. Abby Lynn opened the front door and stepped onto the porch with her hands on her hips. "What are you doing with our cow?" She acted all bossy-like. "Well, I was returning Pansy, but the next time I'll let her blow away." And then I added, "In the hurricane." "What hurricane?" she asked, stepping back behind the door and peeking out round it. She squinted. "Say, come here." I walked up the porch steps. "Where'd you get your hair cut?" she asked. "I got it cut in Baton Rouge." I could see an insult itching to get off her tongue. "Kinda looks like Audrey Hepburn," she said. All the times I'd dream of being like Audrey Hepburn, and it was Abby Lynn, of all people, who thought I looked like her, or my hairdo anyway. Suddenly, a gust of wind knocked over a rocking chair on the porch. Abby Lynn screamed twice and shut the door without even bothering to say goodbye. In all my years, I had never known Abby Lynn to be afraid of anything. I took off running home, but instead of thinking of the hurricane, my thoughts were busy now with Abby Lynn, and my thoughts were kind of busy with how Abby Lynn thought I looked like Audrey Hepburn. And to my surprise, I didn't care one little itty bitty bit. All right, so that's the end of chapter 18. Obviously, we are building up to the exciting moment of chapter 19 here. Hey, what does that say about Tiger's character? Abby Lynn Andrews, she definitely could have a sore spot, a little grudge in her heart from not being invited to that swimming party way back in the earlier chapters. But you know what? She still goes out of her way to help the calf. She knows that's the right thing to do. And what does it say about Abby Lynn's character? Are you kidding me? When the wind starts blowing outside, she gets scared. She slams the door in Tiger's face as opposed to saying, Tiger, come on inside. Take shelter with me. She's saving herself and not her friend there. Or is she a friend? I don't know. Anyways, Tiger is stuck outside. She's got to get home. What do you think's going on with Mama at home? Is she going to get back in time? Hopefully Magnolia has control of the situation, but you never know. With Mama, she's like a little kindergartner. She could be out doing some crazy things, trying to find other people, trying to find the cat. Who knows? We got to move on to the next chapter to find all these things out. So thank you so much once again for listening to me right here on YouTube. God bless everyone.